Let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack a truly epic origin story. We're looking at the hamburger conquest, from sailor's ration to global empire. You probably think you know the burger, right? I mean, it's absolutely everywhere. But the journey it actually took to get on your plate, it's nothing short of incredible. And honestly, it's the perfect example of how one simple idea can literally take over the globe.
To really grasp the massive impact of this story, we've got to start with a staggering number: 50 billion. Just think about the sheer scale of that for a second. Americans eat approximately 50 billion burgers every single year. It's a massive, multi-billion-dollar industry that we interact with almost every single day, usually without a second thought.
To put that colossal number into perspective, if you took every single one of those 50 billion burgers consumed in just 1 year and you lined them all up end to end, that line would circle the entire Earth over 32 times. Seriously. Today, the hamburger is the ultimate symbol of America. It is the undeniable, undisputed king of the fast food world. But hey, that brings us to the core question of today's Explainer. What if I told you that the most American food in existence wasn't originally American at all? No way, right? Well, how did a salty, simple slab of minced meat, which was originally meant to feed 19th century sailors, transform into this massive global fast food empire? It totally flips our assumptions about where our food actually comes from. So let's take a deep bite out of history and find out exactly how this whole shebang happened.
All right, Part 1. Origin. The sailor's ration.
You see, our story doesn't start in a brightly lit modern drive-thru with a glowing menu board. Nope. Instead, we've got to travel back in time to the 1800s, all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, landing in the bustling, gritty port city of Hamburg, Germany. The very first iteration of the burger was known as the Hamburg Steak. It was basically just a heavily salted, minced beef patty. And get this, it was often eaten completely raw or maybe just slightly cooked over an open fire. It definitely wasn't pretty to look at, and there were absolutely no soft sesame seed buns in sight. Sounds pretty unappetizing compared to what we crave today, doesn't it?
So why on earth did people actually eat it? Well, life back in the 1800s was incredibly hard. Working-class sailors and factory workers needed a very specific type of survival food, and the Hamburg steak hit absolutely every requirement on the list. It was super cheap to produce, it was incredibly filling for an exhausted worker, and most importantly, because it was loaded with salt, it lasted a very long time on those grueling ocean voyages. It was just practical, the perfect fuel for the 19th century working class.
Moving on to Part 2, the crossing and the birth of the bun.
When massive waves of German immigrants sailed over to America in the late 19th century, they brought their homeland recipes right along with them, including that trusty Hamburg steak. Pretty soon, food carts out on the busy streets of New York started selling this minced meat to attract hungry factory workers looking for a comforting taste of home. But they ran into a massive logistical flaw. The Hamburg steak was incredibly messy. It was totally greasy. And eating a bare slab of meat meant you absolutely needed a plate. You couldn't just grab it and go. And that fatal flaw? That's what held it back from true mass appeal. Luckily, that messy problem was finally solved at the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. This incredible event ended up being the viral eureka moment for fast food. Picture it, massive, chaotic crowds wandering around sprawling fairgrounds. Vendors desperately needed a way to make their food completely portable. And this, right here, was the critical moment in culinary history where the burger finally captured the public's imagination and stepped right into the spotlight. It was a brilliantly simple solution. Smart vendors realized that if you just smash the meat between two simple slices of bread, people could easily walk around the massive fairgrounds while eating. Just think about that for a second. One minor adjustment, adding the bun, completely revolutionized the way the entire world eats. Right there, right in the middle of all that fair energy, we are literally witnessing the true birth of fast food as we know it today.
Which brings us to Part 3, the assembly line revolution.
Okay, so in 1904, we had the invention of the bun at the St. Louis World's Fair. But even with the bun, the burger kind of still had a bad rep as greasy, low-class street food. That changed dramatically in 1921 with a major scientific rebranding when the very first White Castle opened up in Kansas. They deliberately designed their restaurants to look completely spotless, gleaming white and super hygienic, specifically to win over the public's trust. Then, fast forward to the massive post-World War II economic boom. Jumping to 1948, we see the McDonald brothers completely redesign their kitchen, bringing the intense efficiency of a factory assembly line directly to food preparation.
Think about the contrast here. Before this revolution, getting a burger meant dealing with messy street food, waiting around for waitresses, and the super slow process of custom orders. But in 1948, McDonald's completely flipped the script. They eliminated waitresses, they stopped taking custom orders altogether, they basically took Henry Ford's factory logic and applied it straight to the kitchen to create spotless restaurants, churning out cheap, identical burgers ready in a staggering 30 seconds. 30 seconds! They completely eliminated wait times. It was a real game changer.
An ad system was so perfectly tuned that it caught the eye of a true visionary. An ambitious entrepreneur named Ray Kroc saw this incredibly efficient 30-second system, realized its massive potential, and he was the guy who took it global. It was this ultimate, relentless push for efficiency that turned a successful local diner concept into the absolute massive worldwide empire we all recognize today.
And that leads us to our final section, Part 4, the Global Burger Conquest.
You know, it's actually fascinating to compare the hamburger directly to pizza. Both of these foods represent incredible stories of immigration colliding with American innovation. America just has this brilliant habit of importing really humble, working-class foreign foods, whether it's a German sailor's ration or a simple Italian flatbread, and completely transforming them into iconic global staples through sheer ingenuity and scaling.
So, what's the big takeaway from this explainer? Well, the burger started out as a humble, heavily salted German sailor's ration. It was then thrown onto a bun purely for convenience so people could walk around a busy World's Fair. From there, it was scaled up relentlessly through industrial capitalism and factory assembly line logic, and finally, it was exported to define modern convenience across the entire globe. The hamburger is truly the ultimate symbol of global capitalism and innovation. We're going to end on this final thought today. The hamburger hides an epic, globe-spanning history right inside its simple little paper wrapper. So, the next time you take a 30-second bite at a drive-thru, I really want you to ask yourself, what other everyday items in your life are hiding an incredible origin story just waiting to be discovered? Keep asking questions, guys, and always keep exploring the history behind the ordinary.